Hi everyone, this is John Wayne McClung, and we're continuing from our previous video for quickly transitioning online teaching for math teachers, simple tips for class. We covered commute time to class and warm-ups to our So now we were going to continue with separate recordings, and by the way, shorter recordings process faster. So if you do have a longer class, then there's an additional reason why you might want to break up your class into multiple parts. So my classes are an hour and a half. A lot of college professors have them maybe that long or hour 15. Then breaking them into multiple recordings will allow your videos to process faster and upload faster so that you can have them ready for your students in a more reasonable time. Okay? But even separate from that, I highly recommend that math teachers do separate videos for lesson time when you're learning the concepts, when students are learning the concepts, versus tutorial, what I consider to be called tutorial time, which is helping them with the homework. And if you do separate videos, then you'll be able to put those in different places in the recording stock. The tutorials are something that you would hope to be able to use year after year, semester after semester, so that over those years, your tutorials get fleshed out more and more. So for instance, when I first started teaching online and I would do tutorials on particular problems, I only had time to cover so many concepts that first year when I did those tutorials. But the following year, I could cover more. And so every year, I could have more and more of a fleshed out tutorial recordings for my students available to them to help them with particular problems. In addition, this is a really valuable use of the snipping tool that we talked about in the first video of this series. And the snipping tool, as a reminder, is a tool on PCs. People who have Apple products have something equivalent to this, and it allows a person to not just take a screenshot of their entire computer screen, but to take a screenshot of a particular piece of it, say maybe just this much of it. So the advantage of having the snipping tool during tutorials is that you can ask a student volunteer to do the screenshot notes for that day. And once you get your volunteer, you just go ahead and tell them, okay, go ahead and get a Google Doc ready, share it with me, and have your snipping tool ready. And then after you finish going through a problem, the student who is in charge of the screenshot notes, you step out of the way and they can take a screenshot of the whiteboard. And then when you're all done with all the problems that you're covering for that day, you make a copy, use Control A if you're not familiar with that. Control A selects all, and then Control C then copies it all. Paste it into your own Google Doc. That way you don't have to worry about privacy issues with students. Put it in your own Google Doc and put the link for that Google Doc along with the recording for your tutorial. Multiple purposes for that, including having your students focused on learning and figuring things out during the tutorial instead of them trying to just copy exactly what you wrote, which then means that not much thinking is going on during the tutorial. And so, because my goal is to have my tutorial session still be a problem-solving session where the students are doing lots of thinking. So this frees that up. They know, hey, later on, I can just look there and I'll have all of Mr. McClung's notes, all of the parts of the problem when I go to look at the video later. And I could use that to also recall what we did if I forget. Then the next one is ways to encourage participation and a safe environment that allows thinking and problem solving to occur. Right. So you may or may not have noticed my quote up here. Right. Guessing is the key to progress in math. If when a question is asked and students just say, I don't know, what happens to their thinking? They stop. That happens to all of us, right? When we say, I don't know. But if instead they feel free to guess in your class, then as soon as a guess occurs and other students also take their guesses and you see all those guesses in the chat box, then thinking starts to occur. Oh, I made my guess. Is that actually going to work? Oh, I see somebody else's guess. Oh, lots of people guess the same thing as I am. Maybe I'm right. Oh, wait, somebody else guessed something different. Maybe they're right. And start thinking through, the students start thinking through those processes. And you can then use those guesses and then try them out in the problems and see where they lead and get students used to that problem solving process. So one of the ways to encourage that is to ask the students to give a guess and or a logical wrong answer to the question that you just asked. Then that way, if they don't feel very free to guess, they can give an answer that they think is at least logical, but maybe wrong. And they don't have to identify, and I wouldn't make them identify, whether they were really trying to guess what was correct versus giving a logical wrong answer. You'll just see a whole bunch of chat messages with both of those possibilities. I would also give the option of asking a clarifying question in case they just don't know what it is you're asking, right? We know what we're trying to ask, what we're saying, because our mind is in this. We already know the material, the concepts. The students, it's hard to follow somebody else's thinking. So it's nice to have that extra option to ask a clarifying question. But this can really spur on the participation and engagement in your class. And if it's not something you at first are used to doing, I used to take a particular part of my class, and I still do, which is after we're done doing the warm-ups, the daily duos, that we then do some mental math. And in that mental math, I required that we have at least 3 different answers. And so a lot of times when that would occur, the students who actually thought they knew the answers then would creatively think about, what is a logical wrong answer that somebody might say based on this problem? And so they'll give those, and then you're able to say, oh, how many can see how that was a logical wrong answer there? Why somebody might think that that could be the answer. And it makes for a really nice exploration of the math concepts. All right, we'll continue on with these next 2 in the next video.